Welcome everyone to Visionary Psychics. I'm Sara Wiseman, and we are here with one of our visionary psychics, Karen O'Hara. Karen, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, so during this summit, I've been so fascinated by who is showing up to this work, not just in our group, but like in general in the world. What kind of people um, kind of find themselves on this path. And I'm just curious for you, how how did this path of wanting to study intuition, or this sort of marriage of intuition and spirituality, where did that come up for you?
Well, I've always been sensitive. So I grew up in houses that were old and I always knew spirits and I could describe them. And I've always been fascinated with that, but never really could make the connection between God or a higher power and spirituality. So that's been my lifelong kind of quest to, I needed some facts to go with the faith kind of thing. Anyway, I read the book by a couple years ago, and I've read many books as we all have, but I read the book by Michael Newton,
Oh yeah,
Destiny
yeah.
of the
Uh-huh.
Soul,
Hmm.
and that just was like a light bulb.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, it obviously there's a higher power and we're connected, and the whole nine yards. And from that book, I read your book, um, the intuitive intuitive path. Is that what it is?
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's the one I read. And then I was fascinated with that and the spirit guides. And then I noticed at the back, still not knowing how I was going to do it. And I read at the back that you did these courses. I'm like, oh, you take classes to develop just like anything else. It never had dawned on me. So I started taking the classes and reading more of your books. And then, 3 years later, here I am. Through that, I went through another and did psychic study and then mediumship study, and then just taken, all of your courses here. And here
Nice.
I am. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I learned about Michael Newton, he's passed on now, but years ago, I had gone to see a man. So my husband knew this man who was a channel at the time that I was starting to channel. And I went and spoke to this man about his experiences. Some of his channeling's been featured in some of my books. It's Gary Weber. And um, he gave me a book, and it was Michael Newton's Destiny of Souls. And then a couple years later, I met Michael Newton at some
Oh,
kind of uh, it was in Denver. It was some kind of new age conference. And I remember just when I read that book. So I don't know if you remember, but that book had like little diagrams of what it was like to go into like the
hmm,
world between worlds and so forth. And
yes.
I remember in seeing those diagrams that I had seen all that stuff, like I dreamt about it, I'd seen it in meditation, like it was so familiar, all this before I had read the book. And so that was for
Hmm.
me like that you're saying, that proof of, I know this book before I read it, something's going on. Like what's going on here? And
Yeah.
that really inspired me to like keep going and see where we could go when we do this kind of journeying.
Right.
Yeah. Uh, um, and I remember when I got to meet Michael Newton, I did want to just like ask him every question, but he was quite a bit older by then, and he was just like not. He was not into. He was like, read the book, That's as much as I can give you. So when you were younger and like you would be in these older houses, what part of the you was that then the US, or where was
Mm.
that around?
California. I grew up until
Ah,
3 years ago. I was Southern California,
okay.
born and raised.
So, and did you have any support for this, or did you?
Well, the
Um,
interesting thing is my brother and sister, when we got older, we were talking about it, and we had never talked about it with anybody. And it was so funny. I said, I used to see, and this, I would describe this man, the one man I saw, my brother was like, oh my gosh, was he with a top hat and a long, I'm like, yes. And so then we called my sister and I'm like, oh, you won't believe what my brother said. She's like, oh my gosh, I saw him too. So we were all young and we saw him, but then they didn't see any of the other people. So I think it was the man who built the house, and he was kind of watching over the three of us, kind of making sure we didn't mess things up. He was he wasn't He was nice, but he was coming to make sure that kids didn't, you know,
Rude stuff.
get too
Yeah.
crazy in his house,
Yeah.
you know. But
Yeah.
I forgot the question, but yeah, so
Yeah.
I knew, and then every house I've lived in, except for maybe two of them, I have felt a spirit, and I could describe them, and at one time saw them, and you know, through my 20s,
Yeah.
so I didn't really have any support, and through my 20s, it manifested kind of as anxiety because, and I
Hmm.
guess that happens a lot because I would see things, and it's like, oh, I'm going crazy, I must be crazy, and then from there is when I started going to reading and trying to find just the right book that would, you know, but it took
Hmm.
a long time, and that's, I guess, for a reason. And I think
Yeah.
you have to be in a certain place to kind of take it all in. I wish I had found it maybe 20 years earlier, but it might not have been the right time for me.
It might not have been. I think sometimes, like I was in the same situation, like I was just searching and searching and not being able to find hardly anything. I mean, it was all there. It just,
Mhm.
we just couldn't find it for some reason. And um, I think the universe, like I've had books literally jump off like a bookstore shelf, like just
Really.
fall on the ground by my feet. And then it's like, oh, okay. So I think the universe kind of doles it out like, here's the next piece you need to just kind
Yeah,
of, because if we get it all too early, we can't understand it or process it. It's like we have to have more life experiences to.
I agree. And I had to build a confidence in myself before I
Mhm.
could maybe take this and share it with other people, I think
Yeah.
too, which I,
When
well,
you talk about like this idea of putting intuition and spirituality together, do you have any religious practice now, or how do you find that relates to maybe what you were raised with?
well, I was raised Methodist. I was baptized Methodist. My grandfather was a Methodist minister, but we didn't really go to church because he was Spanish speaking Puerto Rican. So his whole
Mhm.
congregation was in Spanish. So I just used to jump with all my friends whenever I could find a vacation Bible school. It didn't matter the denomination, I would go, and I would feel these certain feelings in these churches, but I didn't. I for some reason it wasn't setting right with me just to read it out of a book. I tried reading the Bible and I read portions of it. So as I got older, I thought, okay, I know there's a higher consciousness that I believe, but how do you believe in God? How do you believe in God? And that was where I would ask people of different faiths, how do you believe? And then they would say, oh, just read, you know, the Mormon. And so I read lots of
Mhm.
different, you
Mhm.
know, Bibles and what am I trying to say?
Sacred text, maybe.
Religions.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And then it was when I really read Michael Newton, it was like, oh, it's not a God. It's not, my God might not be their God. My higher power is their God. It's all the same thing. And that reading that book is what part of the light bulb was, is like, oh,
Mhm.
I do have the spirituality that I've always had, but it doesn't have to be a God, you know,
Mhm.
it can
Mhm.
just be as we're all connected and the higher power. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
think it was
doesn't have.
in me, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
it doesn't have to be someone else's interpretation with all the trappings and rituals and rules that follow from that. That might
Right.
work really well for somebody, but you were seeking something different,
Right.
like your own. Like we talk a lot about in many religions, like this work of intuition or spiritual intuition is forbidden, and that comes from all of these centuries of the church or the churches not wanting to give up the power. Like if anyone can do it, why do we why do we need a
Yeah.
particular church? Or and
Mm.
so um and at the same time, the churches of, you know, all the problems that were caused, all the pain, and all the community support. So it's kind of like um one thing that comes from this newer way of not having any particular religion is that we are struggling to find, like, how do we find community support with others who are doing this work too? And that's of course like what we're all trying to do is
Right.
share and just say this is what's happening for us. um when you are working in your own intuition, tell me how it, like you said, you saw these spirits, and So we've talked a lot about in the classes, like I tend to see more in third eye. Where does that happen for you? What is your um, favorite or easiest way of receiving information?
So if it's intuition, I feel it in my stomach, and then once I feel it, I can hear the voice. If it's truly, I mean, if it's not my ego getting in the way, then I can hear it. It's my voice, but it's really not me. I know it's not me, and
Mhm,
I don't know how
mhm,
you explain that you know that it's not. Um, but when it's mediumship, I found that I see the people. I can describe them. Sometimes they're younger than when they passed, but
mhm.
I can get their quirks or where they used to stand in their kitchen and that kind of stuff. So that's just been in the last maybe 6 months that I've been starting to see that. But when it's intuition, I feel it in my bones. I can
Mhm.
even start to get a little anxious if I'm not paying attention to it. You
Right.
know.
Yeah. Or if something's about to happen and it
Hmm.
hasn't happened yet, you feel that awaiting. I know
Hmm.
just a couple, two nights ago, something happened in town and one of the big transformers blew. I think someone ran into a pole, and sometimes that'll cause a transformer to blow. Um, and I knew all that night. I was like that antsy, edgy, something, something. And just the day before, I had been looking at like a power pack for your phone, and I almost bought it, and then I just didn't. And then during this, so we had a power outage from this transformer blowing, and my phone was only like on 10%. And so if I'd had that power pack that I should have bought but didn't, I would have been all set, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
feeling of like, what's happening? Something's gonna, something, something. So it was just that full body knowing
Yeah,
something.
that happened to me this weekend where I was just kind of felt on edge, like something was going to happen out of the ordinary. And we were driving and I was feeling anxious on the road. My husband was driving and then we got pulled over.
Ah,
And
interesting. Wow.
yeah, and it was just for because he just got his car. It's like his baby little toy, toy, I say, but don't tell him I said that. But he
Oh,
just
he'll
got it
see
out of the
it.
shop. Yeah, he'll
He'll
see
watch it later. So you
it.
said me a car was a toy. So
It was
anyway,
his
no, go ahead.
baby, yeah, his baby up with four wheels.
Yeah.
And we didn't, our registration was expired, but the lights and everything just, I was like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I thought, oh, calm down, Karen. I mean, come on,
What
they're just
can
going to
happen?
take
Yeah.
one look at us and say, all
Yeah.
right, you guys go, which is what he did. And then after that, I was completely calm and I've been calm
Yes.
since. And it was almost like a day and a half that I was feeling like, okay, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, so I also tend to feel this, especially with tsunamis and fires, not so much earthquakes. Does that happen for you?
Um, no, I do
Hmm.
feel like sometimes dangerous situations, like a dog that's stray that's going to get somebody in the neighborhood because we have a lot of
Hmm.
strays out here for some reason. Or we went to go walk the other night and just told my husband, I can't. We have to go back. We have to go
Yes.
back because I have two dogs. And then all of a sudden, this black dog comes out of the shadows. I'm like, we
Yeah.
gotta go. I just picked up my dog and ran. I'm like,
Yeah.
take care
You
of
just
yourself. I'm
know.
out of here. But
Yeah.
I knew it. I just knew it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's all been through developing. I mean, before I would have had a way more of the, oh, I should buy this power pack. I'm not going to buy it. I still
Hmm.
have those, but it would have been 90% that, where it's now kind of flipping that I pay
Right.
attention. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reminder is when things like this happen, this isn't my reminder for me, is like to stop and say, okay, I'm being given this information, so I don't need to know what's ahead. I just need to know this is the action to take now, even if
Right.
I don't know why. Um, my husband and I have a rule that if either of us is in a situation and says, we got to go, like the other person, that's like our code word, like go. And it's hardly even been used, but that sense of the vibe building, whether it's
Mhm.
something's going to happen, somebody you don't want to cross paths with is there, whatever the reason
Yeah.
is. So, um, how would you say your life the way that you make your decisions has changed now that you have these tools that you can check in with the universe, you can check in with the departed. How does that, do you remember how you used to make decisions before, or how do you make decisions now?
Um, I kind of make a decision on how it feels. Like even if I'm telling myself no, there's a feeling even deeper that's telling me just do it, just do it.
Yeah.
And so I'll do that. And I'm a lot calmer. Like if I
Yes.
start to get anxious about something, I can just calm myself down and raise my vibration, and then you get more of a clearer answer. Like, okay, I don't have to go through all the no's. I know this is the right thing I
Mhm.
should be doing. Um, I mean, I'm still not, I still make decisions that are,
Sure. Of
yeah,
course. Of course. It's
but
all, if we were perfect, what just life would be like check, check, check. We wouldn't have any experiences. So of course we have to be taken down the wrong path sometimes, or dead ends, or whatever
yeah.
it is.
I remember as a kid, like things would happen and my brother would be worked up about it. It's like, why aren't you more worked up about it? This is serious. And I'd say, I'm just not. There's nothing I can do about it right now. I'll have to, whatever it was. I can't even remember. There were instances. And he thought I was crazy for saying, it's out of my hands at the moment, even as a kid. And I don't know why I thought that way, but I mean, I didn't then, but I do now, just because it was out of my hands. If it was,
Yeah.
maybe making in school, not getting, putting my homework in or forgetting or something, just something simple
Right.
when I was
Right.
younger and as I got older. Yeah. So
Yeah. Almost
it's
like
just,
this paying attention to what's important and letting the
mhm.
rest go. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been, so yesterday I was doing a pretty long meditation, and I was asking the question, what am I supposed to do next with my work? Because I tend to get really confused about that, and I got that song from Annie, tomorrow, tomorrow, the sun will come out tomorrow, or so all it was tomorrow. So that was today. The tomorrow that I got in my meditation was today, and I said, okay. So basically, what you told me was, I'm going to get my answer tomorrow. That's today. And I said, I really don't know what the answer is. And the guide said, yes, you do. And I just started writing. And I have known for a long time, but today was the day that I would just write down exactly what I'm going to do. It just poured out like the plan. And um, I just think it's interesting because I've been asking that question for so maybe a year. And then suddenly it's the day. And like the universe sort of brings us what we need to know in divine timing, like when the timing is right. It wouldn't have
That's what I'm
helped me
hoping for.
last year. It wouldn't have helped me
Yeah.
last year to know this, because I wouldn't have been able to implement any of it. But today I know, and it's easy. And so, yeah. So that idea of
Yeah.
timing and growing into things.
That's what I need to relax into more than anything. It's just what I'm supposed to be doing. I mean, I feel like I should be doing this work in some way. And I took this other job that it's a lot more than I wanted to at this point. And I thought, oh, well, there must be a lesson I'm to learn. And there is, of course, but I don't see myself forever. And so I was trying to like, who can I go? Who can I ask? What am I supposed to do? Am I doing the right thing? And I just thought, well, heck, I'll just relax into it. And, so from minute to minute, I'm like, I don't want to be here. Oh, yes, you do.
Yeah,
That kind of
yeah,
thing.
just
I don't
relaxing into it.
know.
Um, yeah, and it does seem like when we're in those positions, like I'm not very much in the mainstream world anymore with my work. I was for a long time, but um, it's like in the mainstream culture, dominant culture, that's like a dream that we sometimes go into and we exist in. And then this world of spirituality and intuition is another reality. And then, I don't know, doing the dishes or going for a walk is a different. So it's like we're entering these different realities. And we sort of, at some point, for me, at some point, I just was like, this is the main reality I need to be in. And of course, doing the dishes, because sort of, at least I haven't figured out how to avoid that, but
Yeah.
you know, it's just like maybe there's a way, maybe I should look for that. But yeah, interesting. But like this idea of these other realities that we kind of can go into or go out of, and that dominant culture accepts as this is the way it is. Not really, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I keep waiting for that. I've been the same asking for the last year and a half, just, and I took this job just because they asked me to, but wasn't
yeah.
really what I wanted,
Maybe
you
the
know?
lesson is what do you really want, and allowing that, or for a lot of people that seems to be because it seems like during this time, so when we're recording is well, basically February 2022, so we've just come out of these years of the pandemic. We're just starting to, not just collectively but personally, kind of get going again. This is an interesting time. A lot of people
Yeah.
chomping at the bit to get going, but it's not always clear what they're going to, and that's sort of where we are now. So
Right,
yeah.
right.
Well, anything else you'd like to add or say as we think about this? No?
Uh,
Yeah.
not that I, I'll think about it, of course, after the
Yeah.
fact, but
Yes.
like, ah, I had my moment
Yeah.
now. I
Yeah. Well,
couldn't think of it then. Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Sorry.
And I will put all the information below as to where people can find you and learn about the whole visionary psychics thing. But thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time today.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's
Take
great.
care.
Thank you.